Welcome to the Onstage Podcast, where we deep dive into the power of music and entertainment. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for watching another engaging episode of the Onstage Podcast with your host, Chris Robert. We have a very, very enlightening episode tonight with legendary musician, part of the Mighty One band, Tim Steinruck. So he's a solo rock artist with 30 years of music and performance experience. He has a passion for songwriting and performing. He began his music career at age 18 with a high school diploma. He joined a rock and roll traveling circus and extensively toured. He created a hard rock band called the Mighty One, which we will talk about. And don't know if anybody out there remembers the Mighty One, but it's known for its insanely memorable, heavily look-laden modern classic hard rock, monstrous guitar riffs, screams from the arena concert stage. Tim also wrote Tim also wrote and performed a song called Darker Side of Me with his band as his alternate persona, the Mighty One, a hard-rocking, dark, and energetic part of him. He also leads, so get this, everyone. He also leads a ZZ Top tribute band, Memory of Dusty Hill, called Legs, which is a song that ZZ Top came up with in the 80s called Legs. So he calls the group Legs. It's a polished ZZ Top tribute band with an incredible stage show appealing to audiences of all ages. But not only does he do music, but he also became an entrepreneur in Vancouver's film industry. He founded a successful multi-seven-figure cleaning business. And he also leads a record company, a reality TV show called Rise Up TV, which we're going to talk about, and an independent multimedia network, which Rise Up TV, everyone, it shares Jesus and his love with the nations. And each episode features stories, testimonies, and interviews from men and women of God worldwide. So since its launch in March 2020, Rise Up TV has grown to nearly 1.5 million viewers per episode. It's amazing. Wow. I'm just going to let you know, everyone, that the unique approach is that the show's filmed on the road with touring musicians who have just met artists from various genres, country, Americana, indie rock, and more, to share the real world experiences. And you can also stay connected. So we're going to discuss about Rise Up TV pretty soon. But I want to know, you had notable guests on there. You had Serena Haggerty on there.
Yeah, correct.
Fraser Newcomb, Archie Goodall. You also had the Mighty One. You had yourself on there. Jimmy Allen. Another one is Bruce Coughlin. Oh, excellent, everyone. Dusty Marcus, another one. We'll be going to have Dusty Marcus on our podcast next month. So I'm just going to tell you that Tim produced and released multiple albums of his own and for others. He's passionate about songwriting, performing, and supporting independent music artists. He's a certified accelerated evolution success coach. Wow, you've done it all. Do you climb mountains too?
I do, as a matter of fact. I've been doing a lot of hiking.
Oh no!
I did Machu Picchu with my dad not that long ago, and we did the Pyrenees from France to Spain. Yeah, love hiking, love it.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Well, Tim, we're so happy to have you on our show tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me so much, Chris.
You're very welcome. Tim, I'd like to ask you, what inspired you to pursue a career in music?
It's just always been there, Chris. It's always been there. I grew up in northern British Columbia in the church, and my dad was the organist, and our family would always perform at the church. And as soon as I could play an instrument, which I believe the first one was a set of Simpson Sears drums, And
Hmm.
then I started to accompany my dad and kept doing that till about age 13.
Wow. So do you know how to play the organ as well, Tim?
I did take piano lessons, and I got to tell you, Chris, I kind of cheated though because I was too lazy. I didn't really want to learn how to read music. It was something that I found quite laborious, and I just didn't really. I more like to sit down at the piano and just play what was in my head. So when I was taking piano lessons, I would take home my assignments, and I would say, "Dad, I'm having a problem with this," and then I'd get him to play it. I'd hear it, I'd watch his fingers, and then I could play it. So I passed with flying colors, but I never actually really learned to read.
Oh, wow. Would you consider yourself a multi-instrumentalist? Because I believe you know another instrument besides the guitar.
Yeah, I play guitar, I play bass, I play
Yep.
keyboards.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean singing. I guess my voice is my main instrument, Chris.
Yes, definitely a stringed instrument. It is, and a good one too. I'd like to ask about your first experience on stage. What was that like?
Well, first experience on stage was at the church. I mean, that's really, really. I never really looked at it that way until maybe a few years ago, because I really resented actually. When I became a rebellious teen, I sort of started to resent the whole church thing, and the limits that came with religion, and so I kind of pushed that back out of my memory, and I went, okay, the first time I was ever on stage, um, was really when I played. There's a video called "Torture Rock and Roll," which is a story of me playing in my silo, a silo on the farm. I ran 300 feet of extension cord out to the silo, and I plugged in my guitar amp, cranked it to 10, and
Hmm.
hit a chord, and that whole steel building just went wah, and I was on stage for like at least 5 hours that day, and then it continued every day after that. So that was really my first time on stage. Who was my audience? My audience was the world, as far as I was concerned. I was on the big
Hmm.
concert stage, though I'd never experienced that before. I knew exactly how it
Wow.
felt in that moment.
That's amazing. So how did you come up with the name The Mighty One for your band?
So the Mighty One came from a place where I tried. There was many bands. Of course, I had a deal with Paul Stanley. That was the name of that band was Unchained, and that was great. That started as a Van Halen tribute and then turned into an original project. We got signed with Paul Stanley from Kiss. That fell apart when the grunge scene first started happening, with the kind of music that we were playing, which was more of like a hair metal thing, wasn't cool anymore. So that deal faded away. So I had a bunch of bands along the way. And then finally I ended up here in this studio that I'm in right now. And I started writing music, and I didn't have a band at all. And I just said, there was two names. One was I Am Tim, and the other one was The Mighty One. And I decided on going with the Mighty One because it had, not only was it just because I am the Mighty One, but it also had a bigger meaning to me, that we are all one, that we all come from one place, that again, bringing this energy of the creator and source and all of this, and so that's where the Mighty One came from.
That's wow. That's I love stories like that. I love that. So, I mean, so when you first started into music, were there any challenges in your early years of your music career?
um I gotta tell you honestly, just a couple days after graduation, I left home in northern British Columbia and I came to Vancouver. And in a short period of time, I was out on the road, and it was probably the most freeing time that I've ever had. It was easy. It was the life that I wanted. I remember sitting in the front seat of the bus with my journal and just writing about how I'd finally had come home. I'd finally come home. This life that I'd wanted for so, so, so very long felt like lifetimes, really, in a lot of ways, was here. And so there wasn't really any challenges except for the usual things that come up when you're on the road, which is, especially when you're playing 6 nights a week, constantly in and out all the time, was burnout. Drugs and alcohol were always there, and they sometimes came to impose themselves on me. So the lifestyle, in a lot of ways, I think, was the biggest challenge sometimes.
I can imagine that, especially, I guess, were you ever tempted to take drugs and alcohol?
It was part of the culture. It was definitely part of the culture. And if we had a lot of traveling to do, or we didn't get much sleep or whatever, then we would take things that would keep us awake.
Why do you suppose that drugs and alcohol are synonymous with rock and roll?
Well, I think they have been in the past, okay, and I think that comes simply from that after every performance that you do, there is this impetus to want to celebrate. Everybody else is celebrating, right? The audience is celebrating because, it's their big night out, or, they were really looking forward to seeing you. So they're in celebratory mode, and so you just get sort of swept up by it.
Yeah, there's also sex in there too, and many of these musicians, I think it was because all these girls that liked the idea that they could do whatever they wanted with a musician, said, "I'm, doing whatever with whatever musician." So I wonder if that's actually happening. I think it's happening even today. I don't know
Oh,
if it's
sure.
happening in the Christian worship field as well. A lot of Christian musicians out there just recently as well.
Well, I mean,
So
when you make a commitment to a different type of lifestyle, then you live a different type of lifestyle. And let's face it, a lot of the artists that were, hell bent on having drugs, sex, and alcohol being part of their life. I mean, they're now living healthier lives. They got exercise. There's no more alcohol backstage. It's people are more drawn to health and vibrance and vitality. You know what I'm saying? That seems to be more common now than anything else. With the young kids that maybe are coming up, maybe some of them there's still some of that, but there's really no time for that so much anymore. It's not as cool as it used to be.
I can understand that. How did you manage? Like, how did you transition from musician to entrepreneur? How did that happen?
Well, my first marriage, she had 3 boys, and
Hmm.
again, this deal with Paul Stanley had fallen apart, um, and it was over. And I just finally got to the point where I had to take care of my family, so I got into the cleaning business, and I didn't start a business right away. I was working for a carpet cleaning company. I did quite well, got to the top of the pile because I am good at selling, and it was all about selling. And in no time at all, I met another guy there, and he and I went, "Well, why are we making this company millions of dollars when we could actually be doing it for ourselves?"
Hmm.
And we were able to start a business with the help of another larger insurance business. And next thing we know, we have the opportunity to go into the film industry, which was just starting to boom in Vancouver. And all of a sudden, we're on our own. And in the first year of our business, we did $250,000, and in the second
Wow.
year, we did almost $2 million.
Wow. So how do you balance entrepreneurship with your passion for music? How do you do it?
Well, it hasn't always been balanced. I'll be honest with you, right? I mean, I had that business for over 13 years. It had lots of ups and downs because, as we know, with the film industry or the entertainment industry in general, it has lots of peaks and valleys, and those peaks and valleys were such a challenge to my time that oftentimes this studio here was sitting, empty. It was right there. My office for my cleaning business was just outside of here. and I could see where I was going to go, but I never had the time to come in here. And then when in my second marriage, when my wife got pregnant, you know, I just went, it's time, and I sold that business and became a full time music entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, what motivated you to create a record company?
Well, that the record company was actually kind of had started already. I had been observing a man. His name is Mark Rosner with Big Records. I'd been observing him for quite some time. He had a management company, and then one day he announced, "I'm starting a record company." I'm like, "Okay, it's time to reach out to Mark." And I reached out to him and formed a relationship with him, and now I'm the operations manager at Big Records now.
I don't know how you do it. You got to handle your mental health. What do you do with your mental health? How do you make that work so it doesn't, so you don't become an insane Tim Steinruck?
Well, I really believe in daily discipline. Okay, so the first thing that when I get up in the morning, I believe the thing is to take care of ourselves first, right? You're only as good as you're treating yourself, right?
Mhm.
So if I can take care of myself, then I can take care of others. So first thing in the morning, I find, I have these disciplines that I do, and that's what keeps me sane. That's what helps me create my reality, as it were, right? And I have, with my coaching program, I have something called, how to become a master of your reality. And I'm simply duplicating the things that I've been doing for myself, which in the last 4 years have been, yeah, it's been quite the ride.
I bet you it has been. What's your approach to songwriting and your creative process? For instance, your song "Reprieved" or "My World" by the Mighty One. How did you bring those two into fruition?
Well, Reprieve was the very first single for the Mighty One. It was written in 2007, and right here in this room, I had a structure for it, but I had no band. But my tenant downstairs, Ryan Van Puderoyen, had just joined a band called the Devin Townsend Project, and so they came in here to rehearse. I basically said, "Hey, you guys come and rehearse, and you can record your album down here, but in trade, please be the band on my album." And so Devin himself, the singer, who's quite the producer himself, he's a incredibly talented musician and songwriter and performer. He helped me bring Reprieved to an amazing production level, and then it was a huge hit in North America, and the video did really really well, and it was the launch of the Mighty One.
So, for instance, how do you know that the lyrics for "My World" suited that song? Weren't there times when you had to toss this word out or toss this line out, add this one? Or was it just something, okay, we're writing it, boom, here are the lyrics, boom, we're done?
No, I mean, my world, I mean, a lot of times, especially at that point of the Mighty One, I was writing about, because it was the end of my first marriage. I wasn't in a great place. I'll be honest with you, Chris. I wasn't in a great place, and so music was my therapy, and so I wrote about things that were going on. My world, for instance, was written about my apocalyptic fears that we were living in the end of the world. That's what it is about. My world. Everything is wrong today, right? Because everything was wrong in my life, and those fears had consumed me. But by writing about it and making and creating that song and recording it, it's like therapy. You get it out, you get it out, and then you can look back at it and go, oh, wow, I was thinking that way at that time. But where am I thinking now? I'm thinking in a different way, right? And so now, as I sit here, I have a completely different mindset than I did then. But I can recognize and acknowledge where I was at.
What was it like for you during those dark times? Was there a moment where you just wanted to give it up, take your life? Like you must have seeked help somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of really great people around me, so it never really got to a place where I wanted to take my own life. I've always seen, value in my own life. I never got, that depressed, but yeah, it was a hard time. And some days I had a hard time getting out of bed. And, I was engaging in very, sort of unhealthy habits. I wasn't taking care of myself. I felt, often I felt very much like a failure. I'd done all these amazing things, but yet here I was with nothing.
Do you feel that your songs deal with experiences in your life? Like, what's the experience behind My World or Reprieved? What happened in your life that you had to write Reprieved?
Well, reprieved, I mean, is about, realizing that there is a higher power that is giving us another chance. Okay. So when somebody is reprieved, they've been given a second chance at life. And that's what reprieved was about. Even though I was going through those dark things, like I wrote about in My World, and there's some other relationship songs on that first record that, were dealing with my, the end of that in my first marriage, and the pain of divorce and loss
Mm.
and all of that. Reprieved really was the big hopeful song on the album that was about, hey, I've got another chance here.
We all get a second chance, definitely.
Well,
So, and you what?
sometimes third, fourth, and fifth ones too.
Yeah, that's true. So what kind of themes do you typically explore in your music?
Well, I mean, on Torch of Rock and Roll on this recent album, I definitely look through. I mean, it's the story of my life, really. Now we're almost getting into autobiography territory. Like Torch of Rock and Roll is my autobiography. If you've ever seen the music video, it's that story that I told you of having that realization of purpose, right? Um, but the rest of the album is really about, being inspired, and having a spiritual force that is supporting what I'm doing, but also being aware of mental health, being aware of some of the loss, like Kicking Stones, the recent single, is about losing my very best friend, right?
Mm,
Which happened in 2016.
mm.
Um, so definitely mental health, spiritual depth, like telling story legacy. It's about storytelling. Those are sort of the main themes.
Well, what about your belief in, you say, a higher power? People say, "Oh, the universe will," but really, when you think of it, it's not the universe. It's not a higher power. It's God Himself, who is an actual living being who is there with its eyes scanning to and fro, keeping watch over the bad and the good, as the Bible says. What's your thoughts
Mhm.
on that?
Well, I mean, everybody has their interpretation of God. Okay, so the Bible describes God in a certain way, and I'm very aware of that, and of God being an entity, a person, a thing, you know. But then there's other people who say, listen, everything that is living is part of God. We're all sparks of the one, right? So it all depends on your perspective. If you are Bible based, then it's quite a linear way of looking at what God is. But I have to say honestly myself, Chris, I have studied many religions and continue to study many religions. um, I'm not a big proponent of religion. As a matter of fact, I think that religion is one of the things that divides us. But having a understanding that there is a force greater than ourselves that is guiding everything, that's something I can get behind.
Okay, so what was your motivation behind the reality television Rise Up TV show you lead?
Well, I mean, again, this was Mark Rosner was the one who first created that. He took a bunch of artists, threw them on a bus, and went across Canada, and uh, and just created a live event that to really to I don't know if he was thinking that he was going to make a reality show at that time, but that's what it's become. When I got involved with big records, obviously Rise Up TV was one of my immediate interests, and was one of the things that drew me to working with Mark, and so it's evolved since I became involved. Jimmy Allen Sign, who we talked about, he's really, in a lot of ways, he's not only the bus driver and a character in the show, but, he really helps to direct and produce, as do I. And then we have Lisa Sanders, who's the tour manager. And the three of us are sort of the main characters of this reality show. And then we have lots of different artists that come in, and we capture the journeys, the very, very unique journeys that happen with them. And we've gone all over the world.
Amazing, Tim. We'll put that down in the description down below. I heard that as a musician, you support and guide independent music artists. How do you guide them? In what way?
Sure, sure. So I really, like, for instance, at Big Records, when we get an artist on board, I'll sit down with them and I'll interview them and I'll find out what exactly it is that they want to achieve. And then I help them plot a path towards that goal, which is very much what I do in my own coaching business here, right? So people will come to me if they're struggling, I can help them through their struggle. But if they've got some bigger goals that they want to achieve, I can help them to plot a path and support them along the way. So that's exactly what I do. But also, I've got a recording studio here. So I love to produce new artists. Okay. I love to write songs with new artists and really help them come up with a great release. And so that's how I can support young artists. But I work with every artist. I've worked with artists that have been artists for a long time. As a matter of fact, some of my clients are guys in their 50s who, have gotten a very comfortable life, gotten in, and they've got a house, they got a great job, they got a great family, but they're feeling empty and incomplete. Why? Because they had a purpose at the beginning somewhere, that was to be an artist, that was to be a recording artist. I can help them realize that dream.
Yeah, your success coach. It's called Accelerated Evolution.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's an
accelerated
interesting
evolution.
name.
Yeah, so accelerated evolution was a process, a number of processes that I've studied. I've become a master coach, accelerated evolution master coach, and it's really about removing and dissolving the emotional blocks that are keeping us from living the life that we want to live. So there's a number of different processes that I work with people. One of my programs is called End Your Struggle Now. So people who, again, like I just mentioned, like if you had somebody who was an artist and put their career aside, get to later in life and go, oh my God, my life has no meaning because I never fulfilled my purpose. I can help remove the emotional blocks, or it's help them remove their emotional blocks so that they can actually have a clear path to the life that they want to live.
And you're also hoping that it helps you, not just help the other artists.
Well, of course. What success has a way of spreading itself out. It's we pick this up almost by osmosis, right? So whatever success I create in my life, I want to share that with others. Whatever success I help others create creates more success for me. So it's what I call a success wave, and you get that wave rolling, and then you surf it.
Yeah, you were talking about earlier. You're talking about signing a deal with Paul Stanley of Kiss, and I also found out that I think you played with Eric Carr before he passed as well. I believe in Kiss.
I never
I
never got
also
Never got a chance to play with Eric, but we did meet Eric. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of sad what happened to him. What is the story behind signing a deal with Paul Stanley of Kiss? I actually have a story here. Now, I have a friend named Wayne Anderson and Mike Green, and they are in this band called Element 117. And his story is that a long time ago, he went to see Kiss, and he had one. You remember the Kiss dolls? He had a Gene Simmons doll. So what he did is he handed it to Paul, and he threw it in the audience. It really pissed him off. It's like this. You can't take my Gene Simmons doll and throw it out in the audience. You're supposed to give that Gene Simmons doll to Gene Simmons, but Paul Stanley decided to throw it in the audience. So that's my Kiss story from Wayne
Well,
himself.
I mean, those guys are pretty competitive, so I can see that happening.
It's amazing. It's funny though. So tell me how what advice can you give to aspiring musicians?
Aspiring musicians. The best advice I can give to you is be authentic. Write music that comes from your heart. Write music that really comes from you. Sure, be inspired by the artists that you look up to, the artists that inspire you to do what you do. But when you write from authenticity. Write raw, write real. And also make music. I think it's more important than ever these days because of music has changed a lot. It has different value than it did before. Now your music, in a lot of ways, if you want to be successful, you need to write music that's going to help other people. You got to write music that's going to make the world a better place. I think that's really important these days because entertainment is fleeting. It's like burgers. You eat it, you're gone, but you still, you've got an empty feeling in your stomach. Make something that's really special. I believe that, for instance, that the music is creativity, and the creativity is the language of the soul. It's your soul speaking. So let your soul speak clearly and authentically, and not be colored by what you think or what your ego says you should do.
Do you listen to other group and other bands' music as well? Do you have like a go-to song that helps you get back to where you need to be?
I have been listening every single morning. The workout song that I start with every morning is by a band called Nightwish, and they're from Europe. Okay, and they have a song called "I Wished I Had an Angel." I have been listening
Hmm.
to that song every single day for like 1,625 days in a row. That's the song that gets me going every morning. That's my go-to song.
Oh, that's good. That's what you need, right?
Yep.
How do you maintain discipline and purpose in the whole thing? That you're not going to wake up in the morning and say, "What am I doing? Why am I doing this?"
Well, I mean, I think we have a choice. We can be the boss of our life, or we can let our mind be the boss of our life. And I've found a way to overcome my mind, and that is simply by taking that first discipline in the morning, which is doing that. I do a workout. It's a 7-minute workout. I do it every morning. I've been doing it for 1,625 days, and I tell my mind, Tim Steinruck, the heart and the soul is the boss of this life. Mind, yes, you're here and you can help, and you can help to, achieve all of these things that Tim wants to do, but you are not the boss. When we let our mind lead our lives and let our ego lead our lives, we are doomed.
I totally believe that, Tim. I totally believe that. So it's sort of when you have to give yourself into your music and then give yourself and your family and everything, you always end up thinking, oh, you just go out and you do something like take a walk or listen to music, whatever. And then sometimes you'll listen to bands and you're like, this is interesting. I kind of look like that guy. Now I want to talk to you about Legs, the ZZ Top tribute band in sorrow for the death of Dusty Hill. So how did you end
It's
up
actually
getting into a
it's actually Dusty Hill's 75th birthday today.
yeah?
It is. It is. But I'm sorry I cut you off. What was your question?
Well, Dusty Hill is the one that passed away recently, but it
He
would have
passed away
been
a
his
few years
75th.
ago. Hmm.
Yeah. So how did you
Hmm.
find yourself in a ZZ Top tribute band?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've had the beard for a long time. Like you said, I've had this beard for about 25 years. So I always had the wish to have a ZZ Top tribute band, but I don't play guitar like Billy Gibbons. I would, I'm the Dusty Hill of the band. So I was always looking for a Billy Gibbons. And one day I did come across a guy. He had a ZZ Top tribute band called Fandango, and uh, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, would you be interested in starting another ZZ Top band? I want to do something." And he goes, interestingly enough, he says the band just that I was in just broke up, and so that's how that started about 10 years ago.
Oh, I love that story.
Hmm.
What's your favorite song to perform?
I'd have to
I know
say
it's
just
obvious. The
I just,
legs knows how to use
I love that
or
song. I love that song.
sharp
But
dressed man, maybe.
I like that too. I like that too. But honestly, I'm really a fan of the older stuff. So a song like "Just Got Paid" or stuff like that. That's what I really like a lot. "Under Pressure" is also a great song.
Yeah. So so Tim, what's next for you in terms of music projects?
Music projects. Well, I'm we're sort of wrapping up the Torch of Rock and Roll album. So we just released a song called "Kickin' Stones," which has done very, 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 very well. Global attention for that song and the music video. And so we still have one single that we're going to put out from this album, and it's a song called "When This Is Over," and
Mm,
it's actually the last song on the album, and it's a song about because we recorded the album during the pandemic. And I hate to say it, but I was so actually grateful for that time during the pandemic because I could put all my focus into the album. And
hmm.
so, anyways, "When This Is Over" is the final song from the record, and it was about visualizing what things would be like when it was over, when the pandemic was over. So it was really a song of hope, and I think it's a great song to end the album with. So we're going to release that along with a lyric video, and then in September I have a comic book that I've been working on for the last 2 years. It's
Really?
called Yes, it's called The Mighty One Legacy. So if you see the video Torch of Rock and Roll, it's based on that story, but it's a comic book series. And so we'll be releasing that comic book. And that basically the concept of that is this alter ego of mine, the Mighty One, um, being a superhero or becoming a superhero. Okay. And realizing that, and this is funny because I wrote the story, 3 or 4 years ago before I was even aware of artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
The story is basically the Mighty One is a superhero who's filled with spirit and is here to help protect humanity's soul from digitization. So,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
yeah. So, and now we're kind of seeing that, right? Like where artificial intelligence is kind of taking over what we would say is organic intelligence, which is just us and nature and, our relationship with God, however that looks. And so that's really the concept of this of this comic book, and we're really excited to put out the first edition, which will be in the fall of this year.
Wow. So you have the illustrator, and then you have the writer, and then the idea is probably from you mostly.
Yeah, well, it's again, it's autobiographical, but
Wow.
then of course we take that as the base, and then we start building a fictional story. But again, to bring awareness to what's happening, with artificial intelligence. The interesting thing is, Chris, is that the upcoming editions that I have of this comic book have been written with the help of
Oh
AI.
yeah. I've seen AI do some serious comic drawing. Oh yeah. You
Well,
just
not the
type in a
art.
prompt and it comes up with this image.
Yeah, well, I mean, not the art so much. I have a great team for that, but I'm talking about the storyline. And so, of course, you always have to bring in challenges into the story, right? So, yeah, but we're really excited about it. Other than that, that's sort of going to be we're going to release that and a vinyl edition of Torch of Rock and Roll. And then I've got a great album, a solo album that I've been holding on to and holding close to my chest since 2009. An album called
Wow.
God's Chair, which I'll be releasing.
Yeah, many musicians have music that they have held back. Like Prince must have music that, if it was released, could have 100 more albums. Michael Jackson, a bunch of others may have
Sure.
music that they haven't released yet. And then I'm going to say the Beatles, but both Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney released a song called Now and Then, which they used AI to extract the vocals of John Lennon and George Lennon, put it all in one song. They actually called it the last Beatles song. So
I
when they're talking about
I love that.
AI,
I love that documentary, by the way. I love it.
yeah, how do you feel about AI and Suno and Udio and all those other music makers? Like I watched the Rick Beato episode where he's using like AI. It's incredible how you can tell the music.
Yeah.
Like it's AI, but it sounds like a band is playing. What do you think of it?
I mean, obviously, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to have to. There's so many things for us to compete with within the music industry to really have any success in our careers. Um, Now we have to compete with AI. It's a little bit of a scary thing. There's no doubt about it. Um, but I still believe in the power of organic music and organic performances. I think that there's something knowing the science of music and then the science of sound and frequency. I believe that that's something that AI can't do yet. I'm not saying it won't be able to do it, but it can't because again, music, truly authentic music comes from the soul, and nothing has energy like our souls.
Well, that's true, and AI doesn't have really true talent, but the music sounds pretty good. I was thinking, like, would you ever do a duet using AI with Dusty Hill?
Haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you, Chris. I don't know if I would or not. I don't know. I would think Dusty wouldn't be too happy about that. So and to honor him, I probably wouldn't do that.
Well,
So
apparently, yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
so just to do it for the sake of doing it and aggrandizing myself, with somebody else's past talent. I don't know. I think it's out of integrity. So I don't think I would do it.
Do you think the music industry has changed because of AI and Spotify and downloading music? I preferred the 60s and 70s and 80s where you could buy singles on 45, you could buy vinyls, you had record players, people were still playing 78 albums in the 30s. Now it's just Spotify, and even digital music and MP3s is now out the door, and like it's just bunch of crap now. What do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, we can wring our hands and go, oh, it's changed so much, and it's the value of music, but I mean, we can look at the negative sides of it, but we can also look at the positive sides of it.
Mhm.
With things like Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that, and streaming services, now anybody can get their music out. Where there was a time when I was growing up where you didn't get your music out until some gatekeeper said, okay, we're going to put out your music. There was no
Mhm.
opportunity to do that. You know what I mean? So the game has changed. The valuing system and remuneration system has changed. There's no doubt about it. Where you make your money, but the opportunities for people to hear your music are much more vast than they ever were before. And now with social media, I mean, I have a window to the world right here. We're on a window to the world right now. We didn't have internet. We thought the internet was going to ruin everything, but yeah, it's got its challenges, but it's also got its positives because you and I get to speak together, and our message and our conversation will go out to the world. So um, there's positives and negatives to every situation. I think that wishing and hoping that things are going to stay the same, I think that's a waste of time. But really, identifying what the opportunities are within those changes, that's where the real value is.
I remember back in the early 2000s, I remember when Sean Fanning came out with Napster. I spent hours up to the middle of the night downloading MP3s, music, and burning my own CDs because I didn't really like the current greatest hits album from an artist. So I made my own with my best and everything. And now you don't even burn CDs anymore. You don't even have MP3s. But I noticed a lot of the MP3s that I had from the Napster days, I still have after 20 years. You can't find on Spotify. So good
Sure,
thing I didn't get rid of them.
sure. No, absolutely. And
Yeah.
the quality is probably not so great, but yet you do have them. So um, yeah, no, it's an interesting time, and it's like I say, it's constantly changing. So I think the ability to be able to move and transform with life, and especially life within the music industry, that's the key. That's the key to success, is being to be able to transform. I mean, there's a new social media platform taking off every day. There's another opportunity to get your music out. It's just being aware of it, taking the time, putting your stuff on it. That's the key.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of good audio files out there that have a record player, they have the vinyls. Some musicians these days are pressing vinyl albums because apparently the sound is better than a CD. So people say, you know what, we want people to hear the full blast version of our music, so we're going to have it pressed on vinyl. And Jack White did that from
Sure,
the Jack White,
sure, of course.
one of their albums he had pressed on vinyl, a blue album. And
Hmm.
apparently it's done in such a way that if you play side one and then you take the second album and you play it another side B, it's one song. It's sort of made in a way that's just it's one song or something. I don't know how he did that, but everyone still likes vinyl, and there's vinyl museums down here where you can buy old albums from $450 for the Beatles gold album. I didn't even know they had a gold album. They don't just have a white album, you know?
Well,
So
I think there's something really tangible about having a vinyl, and almost ceremonial, really. To putting that vinyl on the record player, putting the needle on top of it, and yeah, it does have more depth and more sound. It's a different type of sound and a musical picture, I call it, right? Because I'm sitting here in the studio, and in front of me are the speakers, and so for me, it's always about the musical image. What does the sound look like? How much depth does it have? And vinyl oftentimes has more depth
hmm,
than an MP3.
that's interesting. So when you do a live performance, how do you connect with the audience? How do they come up to you and say, "Tim, we love that"? Do they approach you? How do you connect with your fans?
I mean, I think having one-on-one contact and one-on-one experiences with people is so powerful. But I'll just let you know, in our shows, I really, I pride myself on doing shows and performing in a way that leaves people with thinking like, I see life a little bit differently since I saw the Mighty One play. So really bringing that sense of like I said, a higher power, of of a spirituality, of looking at life differently, of um, of a powerful emotional experience, something that transforms you in some way, is extremely important to me, Chris.
Yeah. So, is there like a lasting legacy you hope to leave with people from your music? Like, what do you want people to take away?
I want people to take away that there is, that even within all of the challenges and all of the fear that is around us, and all of the bad news, and the lack of hope, to know that there is hope, that there is good news, that there is good stuff going on all the time, that regardless of whether our body dies, the soul lives forever. That's really, really important to me. And that there is a hand that's much bigger and more powerful than ours, that is guiding the whole thing along. And so, relax, enjoy life, serve other people, serve your fellow humans. Because if we'd all just serve each other, we'd all be taken care of. The problem the
Hmm.
problem in the world is everybody's saying, I'm an individual, I'm me, you're you, and I'll take care of me, you take care of you. Well, let's take care of each other. And so that's the kind of legacy that I want to build, where a legacy of taking care of each other, and this realization that we are actually all one. That's really what the Mighty One is about. We are all one. We're all one organism, really, in a lot of ways. We are humanity, and the earth is our home. And we are all part of this whole ecosystem and this whole consciousness, really, when you want to look at it in that way.
That's interesting. I'm going to ask you a personal question. Now, you're this type of guy who wants everyone to be happy, and you want to help them out, and you want to give of yourself to people, and you want people to bring up and take away positive vibes from your music and everything. You're going to hate me. I don't know if I want to even add this, but why didn't your marriage last? Because a type of guy like you, any but woman would want.
Well, my first marriage, was really, you know, there was a bunch of factors. One of the things was is that I got really lost, because
Mm.
when that deal ended, right? Because I thought I thought I was gonna be a rock star. I thought I had it made, that I'd made it, and when that all started to fall apart, my whole life started to fall apart, and I got
Hmm.
lost for a number of years, even though I started a very successful, you know, company, a seven-figure company, and all of that.
Hmm.
That was all ego that was taking place there. That was all done from a place of ego and aggrandizing myself. And that's always doomed to fail. And therefore, the marriage failed too. I'm a different man now.
That explains your song "Darker Side of Me." Is it about that life?
It is. It is, knowing that we have these shadowy parts of ourselves. Absolutely. And we need to come to terms with them. We need to come to terms with them, and we need to see what our responsibility was in creating that darker side of ourselves, and learning from it. How can that transform my life? The learning of how I got there, how it affected me, and how I'm going to do things differently now in my life. We need to reflect on that. You know how it is, Chris, like when you're walking in bright sunshine, you've got you've got the biggest shadow behind you.
Hmm.
It's shadow's the strongest, even when the light's the brightest it could possibly be. So the shadow is always there. It's always there. But can we have a relationship with that, with knowing that yes, that's there, right? Don't ignore it. It's there, but come to a peaceful place with it and with a knowing that it also has a value for us to learn.
This is great conversation, Tim. Thank you for joining us today. Before we leave, can you give word of advice for up and coming Tim Steinrucks out there?
Up and coming Tim Steinrucks. Well, I mean, I do know. I haven't really met another Tim Steinruck, but there's a lot of people that I work with that we see things the same way. I would say just stay in that place of service. When we're coming from that place of service, we can't go wrong. Yes, we need to take care of ourselves. Yes, we need to build a strong foundation every single day for ourselves to live from. But after that, let's give and try to make the world a better place by helping other leaders become more leaders and make more leaders. That's really what we need. Is we need to, I think, is really help build leadership in the world, because most people are followers. Okay, and following is easy. Following is easy, but it doesn't really necessarily fulfill you. Where you're fulfilled is when you become a leader and you are in service to others. The best leaders I know are the ones who are in service to others.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. You help a lot of people out there, Tim. People flock to you and they know that you're going to help them. Definitely.
Well, it's my intention, and I'm always open to every conversation, Chris. And I really appreciate having this one with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate that. Everyone, all of Tim's music will be linked down below next to his YouTube channel, all his music, listen, and Spotify. And where else can our audience find you, Tim?
Well, timsteinruck.com leads to all of the different things that I do. And you'll also see that that's where I'm starting to cultivate my personal solo releases that I'm talking about, God's Chair. So keep your eyes on timsteinruck.com, and that'll be the link to everything that you could possibly need.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Go all in, Tim. All in. Sing, sing till you're 100, my friend. As
That's the plan. That's the plan, Chris.
long as you remember who you are and where you are.
That's right. Never forget who you are. That's the key.
Thank you, Tim. Really appreciate this. Okay, everyone. Tim Steinruck. See you, Tim.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.